The workshop will run from Wednesday, September 14 to Thursday, September 15 at the Fort Young Hotel. Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Youth Development and Empowerment, Youth at Risk, Gender Affairs, Senior Security and Dominicans with Disabilities, Mrs. Silvani Burton says the standard operating procedures will help governments in providing assistance to the most vulnerable when responding to major events.
These SOPs will undoubtedly assist us in the social sector in closing some of the gaps and standardizing processes in the provision of social assistance to the most vulnerable in our society when responding to shocks. Developing standard procedures for shock responsive measures is also inherently linked to having standard procedures for routine social assistance programs. When the SOPs is complete, it will inform and guide preparedness and response to future shocks based on social protection interventions.
Mrs. Burton explained that there are 3 main objectives set to be achieved through the 2-day workshop.
The aim of the 2 days workshop is threefold. 1, to validate the procedures as it relates to using social protection systems in response to a shock. 2, identifying the role of various stakeholders and defining responsibilities as it relates to shock responsive social protection. And 3, discussing any opportunities and challenges as it relates to collaboration between social protection, disaster management, and all other relevant stakeholders. My ministry is very grateful for your participation in this workshop here today. I am of the opinion that the more we prepare, the better we all will be to respond to any shocks that may affect us.
Representative of the World Food Programme, Ms. Cecilia Asp, says this workshop is another milestone in the collaboration between the government of Dominica and the World Food Programme.
The collaboration between the governments of Dominica and the UN World Food Programme on emergency response and on social protection started several years ago in 2017. And it's really exciting to reach these new milestones today and to continue to strengthen the shock responsive social protection system in Dominica. Because indeed it's a system, as we will see in the course of the workshop today and tomorrow, which engages each of us in this room. This is why it's really essential to us to be able to inform and consult you on these operating procedures, which are part of a process driven by the Ministry of Youth Development and Empowerment.
Meanwhile, Minister for Youth Development and Empowerment, Youth at Risk, Gender Affairs, Senior Security and Dominicans with Disabilities, Honorable Dr. Addis King says, improving government's response to external shocks is an appealing process, as it is a cost-effective way to assist vulnerable citizens after such events.
Improving the shock responsiveness of social protection, in other words, its relevance to large-scale natural, economic, and political shocks, is an appealing prospect and an approach that will be cost efficient, both for the government of Dominica and for our partners working in social protection and humanitarian assistance. This approach has entered the mainstream in recent years, and the government of Dominica, through its multi-year partnership with the UN World Food Programme, is committed to making the necessary adaptations to our social protection programs to highlight not only how social protection can be used as a vehicle for emergency response, but also how it can build people's resilience so that shocks do not turn into a disaster when it occurs.
Dr. King says a study conducted by the World Food Programme in 2019 found that this social protection system allowed government to reach the country's most vulnerable in quick time after these external shocks.
The study found that investing in shock-responsive social protection systems will allow the government of Dominica and our partners to reach the most vulnerable more quickly by saving a lot of time and energy in the delivery of cash to crisis-affected beneficiaries. It also found out that it would also allow us to empower local institutions and also to save money by reducing the cost of our emergency response by $500,000 per year.
Dr. King added that government has been proactive in acting on these findings and creating initiatives geared towards improving its social responsive systems.
A national social registry, along with predefined targeting, is a cornerstone of any shock-responsive social protection system. The government of Dominica has been proactive in acting on these findings and has started several initiatives to improve Dominica's shock responsiveness of our social programs. In March of 2022, Cabinet approved the establishment of a Management Information System, MIS, to enhance data collection and digitalization of current social protection programs to inform shock-responsive social protection planning, program design, and targeting.